Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Kevin again with Yerkit Racing. We're back out in the shop today for another one. We're back on the LT motor over here. We got everything back from the machine shop in the last one and kind of went over how I went about painting the block. And this one we're going to go ahead, we're going to flip it over. We're going to get started on checking bearing clearances on the crankshaft. As long as those check out fine, we'll dive further into the reassembly, but that's what we're going to start with. So I'm going to flip this block over and we'll go ahead and get after it, guys. Stay with me. Alright, so when we roll it in, we want to make sure that our oil holes line up. Don't want to put the top half in or like the block half in the cap side, just to make sure that's something we want to look at. Alright, for this stage of the assembly, we're just checking our bearing clearances. We're going to use plastigauge to check it with. I want to make sure that we're not catching any burrs with the back side of the bearing or anything. The little fingers are in the holes they're supposed to be in. All of our holes are matching up, so we know we got the right side of our bearing in there. I'm going to take and grab the crank. We'll drop that in nice and easy, and we'll check the clearances on it. Try to be really straight on the way down as we can. Don't want to nick any bearing. Right there. That's not it. There we go. Alright, we're going to resist the temptation right now to turn it. Basically what we want to do is make sure that where we put the plastigauge at, that we're not on the edge of one of the oil holes. That'll distort the reading on the plastigauge. Definitely don't want to do that. So right now that one's clear. Should be to go there, 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 and there. Okay, so we're good on those. I actually got to clean the caps up real quick. And where did I put them? All right, hang on, guys. All right, guys. So we're back again out here another day. Had a small setback in the machine shop. Accidentally forgot to give us the caps back when we got the rest of the parts for the main caps, so I had to run and go get those. We got everything straightened out. Alright, so we're going to be using the plastigauge, the green one here. Alright, so we got our bearing in the cap lined up like so. Be careful not to hit the surface. So we're going to use a little bit of oil on the threads and under the flange of the bolt. Alright, so we got everything, all the caps back on. We got plastigauge under them. We got to go ahead and torque them down now to spec, and then we'll pull the caps back off and see what the clearances are on them. One thing to note, down here on the bearing caps, you got these little ridges that the things sit beside, the caps sit beside. I want to be really mindful of that when you put the caps on. Just make sure that one isn't hung up on the ridge itself. As long as you're not doing that, you should be fine. Just like I said, just something to be aware of. So anyway, we're going to go ahead, torque everything down, then pull the caps back off and see what we got. Alright, we can take them to 50 or thereabout, and then we're going to run them up to 77, which will be our final torque on this LT1 block. Alright, so that's everything tightened down. Go ahead and knock them back off of there. See what we got. Now we're going to take our gauge here, just match it up with these here. So, alright, so the number 1 is between 1.5 and 2 thousandths. So I reckon we just call it, it's about the middle point between them, so 1 3/4. Alright guys, so this is what we came up with here. Hopefully you can read it. We ended up with 1 3/4 thousandths on number 1. Number 2 bearing has about 2 1/4 thousandths. Number 3 and number 4 were almost identical. They ended up with around 2 1/2 to 2 3/4, somewhere in there, thousandths. And then the number 5, the thrust bearing, that ended up getting a over 3 thousandths reading. So I got to get a different set of bearings to go in this to make some of the slack. I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and as soon as I get the new bearings in, we will pick back up where we're leaving off now. So I appreciate you guys. Y'all stay with me. We're gonna get it done. Alright guys, so it's a couple days later. We were able to get the bearings we needed to adjust the clearances. Go ahead and snatch the crank back out, throw the new bearings in it, and see where we're at then. Alright, so ran into an issue, guys. I want to show you here what we're working with. Put this down in the block. There's a slight alignment issue with the oil hole. Hopefully you can see it. Anyway, so that is right there with the Clevite bearing. I got a federal bearing over here too. This one, when I put it in there, it looks really similar. It actually lines up pretty good from the naked eye. But what I started noticing, I started checking on it because I really needed to be able to use the undersized. It's going to take a couple of weeks to get this bearing here in the undersized, the federals. So what I started noticing is that, for one, the oil hole on this federal bearing here is considerably smaller than the other one on the Clevite. So then I took a drill bit set here and I stuck it in the hole, right through the oil passage hole, and that's the biggest one that I can get in the hole there as it is. It's a hair loose, but it's a what is that one, 11/16. Alright, so the hole in the block is actually a 15/64 hole. The hole in the federal bearing is only a 3/16 hole. The thing is though, I put the federal bearing in here thinking that it would line up better because, like I said, by the naked eye it appeared to. What ended up happening is that we are actually the net hole diameter that we can get a drill bit inside of the hole, like, just like we're doing right here. Like I said, that's a 11/64 on that Clevite, and the biggest we could get was a 5/32 on the federal. So the net hole size, even though it looks like this is blocking more of the hole, is actually bigger on this bearing. So I really want to open the hole up, and I kind of pull this little bit of material out. I hope you guys can see what I'm trying to show you, but I really want to get in there and pull out. Let me grab a stick. But I really want to get in there and pull out this material right in there. I just wanted to give you guys an idea of what we were looking at here. Like I said, I didn't, at first looking at it, I knew the federals, when you looked at it, you didn't see much of the block behind it. But after I went back and actually started checking it with the different size drill bits as to what would go in it, we actually have more of the hole open with this bearing here. So I think I'm gonna try to get in there, clearance the block just a little bit, so I can get back to the factory size opening which I think that was again, I think it was 15/64. Anyway, so that's the plan. I'm gonna try to flip the block around and see if I can do it without managing to get some shavings in the engine. So let's try it. Let's give it a shot. All right, we're gonna try it just to widen the hole with the bit here, or just a hair. It ain't gotta be much. So I'm gonna actually flip the block upside down, and then we're going to take the drill bit with, I got some grease on it. We're gonna take that from the bottom side, see if we can just open the hole up a hair. Hopefully that'll clean everything out, and then we can just come back and blow everything out. Alright, that looks a lot better. That's a lot closer. Just gotta get a little bit off the very back edge of this bearing. Be careful here. Alright, so after a bit of work and a lot of cleaning, we got the hole to line up and match good on the Clevite bearings. So that's what we're going to roll with as far as that. I'm going to get ready to throw the crank back in here now. I put the undersized. Alright, so I'm going to get ready to put the crank back in here now and check the tolerances on the bearing clearances, now that we have 1/1000 undersized to go with the standards, so we can try to tighten it up about a 1/2 thousandth on some of these. Alright, so the front two were fine before, so really standard on both sides. These two we got 1/1000 under on the block, and we're going to have standard in the cap, and then we'll have 1/1000 under on both on this one. Alright guys, so we checked them again, and actually having both sides be a 1/1000 undersized on the number 5 cap was too tight. So we're going to step it back off and put a standard in the cap in. So now that'll give us standard the whole way down on the caps, and with just a couple, like an undersized on here and here. Alright, so I changed the bearing out back here on the cap. And I'm just going to check everything again, make sure it's where I want it. Alright, so now the front is basically 1.5 thousandths, and then the rest of them are 2 thousandths. Alright guys, so we just checked them one last time, swapped out a couple more bearings. I think we're finally where we want to be. We got 2 thousandths, 2 thousandths, 2.5, 2.5, 2.5, and 3. That's kind of what I was looking to shoot for, so we're right there in the ballpark anyway. I know, plastic gauge probably isn't the most accurate thing, but we're pretty pretty close to those numbers. So all that should be good. I'm gonna pull the crank back out, clean the block up one more time real good, and we'll go ahead and final install the crank. Alright guys, we got the block all cleaned up, ready to start with putting this crankshaft in for the final time here. Alright, so we got a couple of tiny spots on the crank. It's like a little spot of where rusted got up there. It's a darker spot, almost got it all the way out, but we're going to go over it and polish it out with this 2000. Alright guys, we had a couple rod journals that needed a little bit of attention. I wasn't quite happy with the way they were. So we got those polished up a little bit more. Now we're just throwing this crank back in for the last time. Everything is where we want it clearance wise. Ended up with let's see, we ended up with 2, 2.5, 2.5, 2.5, and 3 back here on the back. So we're just going to tighten everything down one last time, and then our crank is set. Alright guys, if you'll notice one quick thing on the number 5 cap where the oil pump connects to, down we go in here and we actually pull back. Let's see if I can get you a shot on it. So we go down inside the little bowl there where it's shooting the oil up into the motor. We pull that hole there back and kind of lay it back into that, so it just gets a little bit, you know, smoother transition, and it helps with getting some more oil flow to the engine. So just wanted to point that out to you, something that I always have seen done over the years. I think it's a good thing to do. Alright guys, so we got all of our main caps tightened down to 77 foot-pounds. We centered our thrust bearing back here, and then we came back, set up the dial indicator to check the thrust on it, and we are sitting at about 3 thousandths. So we come back this way, we're at 49 there, then go back the other way, and we're at 52. So anyway, happy with that. Crank is final installed. On to the piston rings, check the clearance on the rod journals, and then after that we'll do the piston rings, get those right, and we'll be ready to put the short block all the way together at that point. So that's probably going to do it for this one. I'm going to probably pick up in another video. Next we're going to get on to the rods. We're going to check clearances on our rod bearings. As long as those all look fine, we're going to check the clearances and gap the rings for some nitrous, and then at that point we will
be ready to throw the motor back together completely as far as the short block goes. And I got the heads sitting over there, they're ready. Just got to kind of clean up some more stuff as we go. Wish I had a better room to do this in, but kind of working with what we got, so that's what it is. Anyway guys, I appreciate y'all following along with the build. If you haven't already done so, take a second to hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you haven't done so already, so you can keep up with our future content coming out. Like I said, we're going to be doing the rest of this build on the motor, and then we're going to end up putting it back in the car over here, and then after that we'll be off to trying to make some passes and see what we can do with this thing. So anyway, like I said guys, I appreciate you following along, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks.